Hey, hi everyone, we're back for part 2 of our Dune Imperium Ultimate Guide. In this guide, we'll talk about victory points, and this will be the first video talking about victory points, so there'll be 2. So there are multiple victory points in the game, and then we'll run through all of them, and then we'll talk about some in specific. So if you play on Tabletop Simulator, there's like these components that will tell you like what victory points you can get. So we'll just look at all of them here. So first of which we'll look at is the faction friendships and the faction alliances. So you get victory points from faction friendships and you have 2 influence in that faction, and you get the faction alliance if you're the highest if you have the highest influence with the faction, assuming you have more than 4 influence. So these can get you guaranteed 4, and there are additional 4 that everyone can fight over. So next up we have the Spice Plus Flow. So Spice Plus Flow is a card that costs 9 influence, and when you buy it you get a victory point. After that, it sits in your deck as mostly a dead card, but it gives you 1 spice when you reveal it. But these are points that anyone can get as long as you get 9 persuasion. You can buy multiple in return as well, but most of the time you'll buy 1. Next, I think is the most common one that I think everyone looks at when they first play Dune, which is combats. When you win a combat, there's a lot of times where you get victory points, okay? And in stage 1 and stage 2, you can get 1 VP, and with stage 3 combats you can get 2 VPs, maybe 3. Okay, the next way you can get victory points is from the Tleilaxu research track. So when you get 4 scarabs, and each scarab moves you 1 step to the right on this Tleilaxu scarab track, you get eventually when you get to the 4th space you get 1 VP, and when you get to the 7th space you get another VP. So these VPs are things that anyone can get as well. It's slightly different from the Alliance the Alliance track where only the first person gets it. Everyone can get these VPs. Next up, we'll talk about the miscellaneous points. So there are a bunch of ways you can get points. You can get them through texts, you can get them through intrigues, you can get them through cards that you have bought. We won't talk too much in detail about these, at least at this point in time, but just note that they are there. So out of the victory points that I talked about, right, some of them are easier to get than others. So in particular, the faction friendships and the Tleilaxu Point, right, are easy to get. I talked about some which you have to fight others for, and some which you can just, that everyone can get. And so the easy points are the ones that everyone can get. And so we're going to group them into 5 easy points and all the hard points. Okay? And we'll group it in this manner because I think we have one player who is pretty good. His name is Holy Boss, and how he describes the game of Dune, right? Dune is a game of 5 easy points and 5 hard points. So the objective of Dune, right, is to get as many victory points as you can, and when the game, when someone reaches 10 VPs, the game ends after that combat round. So everyone will reveal their endgames, and the person with the highest score wins. However, I think in about 90% of cases, like the person who gets the highest or gets to 10 first generally wins, or maybe 80% of the time. But we will use that benchmark as how we're going to think about this game. You want to get to 10 points, and how do you get to 10 points? So we need 5 easy points and 5 hard points, right? In this video we'll be talking about these 5 easy points, which I've described just now. So the faction friendships and the Tleilaxu Point, and for the Tleilaxu Point, the first Tleilaxu Point. So faction friendships. So there are a bunch of faction spaces on the board. So there's Emperor, Spacing, Bene Gesserit, and Fremen. Okay, every time you go to a space, right, you can get 1 influence with the faction. Okay, and eventually you'll get your friendship when you have 2 influence in the faction. So to go to these spaces, you have to play cards with faction access. So if your starting deck has Diplomacy and Seek Allies which you can play once, and Diplomacy which you can play multiple times across the game. Okay, and across 7 rounds, right, because we draw a total of 35 cards, you draw 5 cards a round, assuming you don't draw additional cards. You'll see your Diplomacy on average like 3.5 times and your Seek Allies once. Okay, so what does that mean, right? That means that is equivalent to about 4.5 influence, right? And we need a total of 8 influence, so 2 influence in each to get all the friendships. So I think I posted a video before on the number 1 mistake all new players make. So the mistake is that they don't play their Diplomacy at high priority enough. So there are times which you do not want to play your diplomacy, but when you don't play your diplomacy, you're very often missing out on a point. Yeah. So do watch the video if you have time after this, and it'll talk about playing your diplomacy and why you should always play your diplomacy. Yep. So always play your diplomacy. So there are other ways where you can get faction influence. You can get them through the intrigue cards. You can get them through techs that you buy. You can get them through combats. And you can get them also through like the shipping track. When you ship down, the scan level of the shipping track gives you a free, not really a free, but a wild faction influence. And also you can get them through picking specific leaders. So some leaders are better at getting influence than others, especially like Tessia and Baron probably are the easiest at getting influence. So these will assist in getting your friendships. So let me talk about the homework or some exercise that you can do after your game that will help you learn how to allocate your faction influence better. So at the end of the game, this is the ideal scenario. You want at least 2 in every faction, because these points anyone can get, and yeah, you know, so if you miss out on it, it is relatively easy. Most of it costs just half an action, right? It costs like 1 action, because you go there, you play an action, you get half a point. So 1 action equals half a point if you go to a faction space of a friendship that you do not have at the moment, right? So these are very easy to get, and you should always try to get these. So at the end of the game, right, you should look at your faction tracks and you ask yourself the question: did you get your 4 friendships? If yes, good job. And if no, you should ask yourself, why not? Why did I not get my 4 faction friendships? Okay. So some questions you might ask yourself, right, is that do you have wasted influence? So let's say in this particular scenario, right, my Emperor and my spacing are at 1 influence, and my Bene Gesserit and my Fremen are at 3 influence, right? Was there any situation where I could have taken the influence or went to Emperor or spacing instead of Fremen or Bene Gesserit? So sometimes we are very concerned about the action reward. So like, I want to deploy troops, I know I want to draw cards, but you must also remember that if you do not get your friendships, you are missing out on points as well. So do look at like where you are wasting influence, right? Or where and especially if you do not have all your friendships. If you do not have all your friendships at the end of the game, ask yourself, is there any influence that I could have channeled this game by taking maybe a less powerful action of maybe like wealth or full space and securing the point instead? The next question you should ask yourself is that, is there any rounds you did not play your diplomacy, right? And this extends to other faction cards as well. You might bought multiple faction cards through the game, but you might not have played them as well. Right, so the rounds that you did not play your diplomacy, do you know why you did not play your diplomacy, and was it the best decision in hindsight? Okay, the next thing you want to ask yourself is that, do you buy cards with faction influence, right? So do you buy like specific cards that grant you Bene Gesserit access, or do you buy cards that give you Fremen access? Alright, so this is 2-pronged, right? So do you buy cards with faction influence? And I think buying cards actually is not so much dictated by faction influence. Also, it's like generally like you want to buy good cards. But I think good cards generally have good access to it, and faction access does improve the value of cards. So the other question you want to ask yourself, right, is that for the factions that I did buy these cards for, right, what is my influence level at? So let's say if I bought a lot of Bene Gesserit cards, and at the end of the day my influence with Bene Gesserit is very high, then you must ask yourself, did I play my diplomacy to go to Bene Gesserit as well, right? Or could I have played my diplomacy into someone else, and then so that I'll get both friendships? The next thing I want you to ask yourself, right, is that, do you fight over an alliance, right? So let's say if Red comes after you at Bene Gesserit, then you push all your resources into securing this Bene Gesserit point, but by the end of the game you don't get your other 3 friendships. Is it worth it? and understand why players do this. But at the same point in time, you must ask yourself, always weigh the pros and cons of when you push very hard on alliance, especially when you miss out on your friendships. So a lot of this is based on sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy is like, because you invested a lot of resources into it already, you think that I should invest more into it to kind of like justify my initial investment. So maybe I got to 3 spaces in the benches, right? Then after that, red also gets to 3 spaces in the benches, right? So because of that, I feel like I need to secure this alliance. It might be a good decision or bad decision, right? But at the end of the game, you should ask yourself, was it worth it based on like your other friendships, right? You might have secured it, but if you miss out on another 3 points, like, was it worth it? So these are some things that there's no definite right or wrong, but you must think about. A lot of times you get into alliance fights because like you're already at 3 and someone else gets to 3 and 2 of you start to fight. So do note that happens. Yeah, so maybe don't go to 3 to begin with. So these are the type of things you can think about. And so I think 95% of the time, right, good players will end the game with all 4 friendships, right? There are some times where someone will get like an alliance and 2 friendships, or someone might get 2 alliances. But most of the time, right, someone will just get 4 friendships. I think this happens like 90-95% of the time. And learning to get these friendships, I think, will significantly improve your gameplay and your win rate. I think they are 3 points that everyone should strive to get. And there's certain play patterns that come with trying to get all your friendships. So do try it out, and do try to think of like if this is the best way to do try it out. So at the end of the game, do like look at your faction friendships and see like, is there any decisions through the game that I could have made differently that would have given me these friendships? Okay, so don't think short term, think long term, and I think good to reflect upon the game at the end of the game on how you could have played better. So the next victory point that we want to talk about that is easy is the Tleilaxu Point, and Tleilaxu, the first point, so where the red player red token is now. So when you get there, you get 1 VP, right? So how do you get this Tleilaxu Point? So you get this through getting 4 scarabs, and this is very tied into the research path. And I posted a video before on which is the best research path, and I think you should check it out. I think I posted it very early into Immortality, and I think it holds true to this day, like what I say in this video. So do check it out as well. So across 7.6 rounds, right, you draw a total of like 40 cards, and on average we expect to see experimentations 8 times. But I think across 7 rounds you'll see like 35 times, draws 35 cards, and you'll see experimentations 7 times. So you have 2 in your deck. So because of that, you'll see, and your deck has 10 cards, you might lose some cards and draw some cards, but I think on average you see them 7 times. This obviously augmented by how many cards you draw and how many cards you trash, but I think we'll just use this as a baseline. So to reach our first Tleilaxu point, we need 4 scarabs, which is equivalent to 12 Tleilaxu cubes. So if we have 7 cubes to begin with, right, and if we play 3 experimentations, right, we can convert those 3 cubes, equivalent of cubes, right, into 2 scarabs and 2 cubes. So this will mean that our 7 cubes or 7 experimentations will become 12 cubes, which is 4 scarabs, which, as you can see, is equal to 1 victory point. Okay, so as long as I play experimentation 3 times throughout the entire game and go down and draw normally, I can get 1 VP. And yet you see a lot of players not being able to get this victory point, right? So why does this happen? So there's another exercise that you can do at the end of the game to think about how you can improve your experimentation play. So this is homework number 2. So homework number 2, right, or what reflection you can do at the end of the game is that if you ask yourself, did you get your first Tleilaxu point? If you did, good job. But if you didn't, right, did you play at least 3 experimentations, or do you research 3 times, right? You can research through just playing your experimentations, graphing the experimentations, or going to research station. All of it are good options, right? And then I'll say that 3 is the ideal because you get the most benefit out of going down 3 times. The other path which I'll suggest is to go forward, down, up. That requires 4 experimentations, but also gets you roughly the equivalent benefit. But there are some good things and some bad things about it. So, but I'll suggest these 2 for most new players. So next, right? Yeah. Do you go forward, like onto the first column, then down, down, or forward, down, up, up, right? So look at the path that you went, or like whatever path you chose, right? Look at the path you went and ask yourself, did I get if I didn't get the Tleilaxu point, like which way could I have maneuvered to get my Tleilaxu point? So once again, I think forward, down, down is probably the most straightforward for all new players, and you should probably consider that if you're unsure what to do. And as you play more, you'll be able to navigate this track a lot better. But I think if you just go forward, down, down, your game will feel a lot easier because you always will end up with this first point. So the other thing that can happen, right, is that you can spend too many Tleilaxu cubes on cards that do not give you scarabs, right? So what happens is that now we know that if you just go forward, down, down, right, we end up at the end of the game with just enough points to get the first VP. So what that means, right, is that if you buy any other card which does not allow you to get scarabs, right, you can actually buying this card actually might cost you a VP, right? So are these cards worth a victory point? So things like Twisted Mentat and Usurp, right, even though they're very powerful actions, right, they might cost you a victory point. And is it worth the victory point? Right? So things like Beguiling Pheromones, it costs 3, you can get more faction influence, but it might be at the cost of Tleilaxu point. So at the same point, you'll start to rate cards that do give you scarabs a lot higher. And one more thing is that I think across the game, you generally spend only about 3 cubes on average to buy cards. And buying more than 3 cubes worth of cards normally does cost you the first Tleilaxu point. But these are all things that you can think about through the game. So another reason that you can end up not getting your first Tleilaxu point, right, is that you can end up buying too many cards. So when you buy too many cards, right, what happens is that you just see your experimentations less, right? So when your deck gets too big, you might just I think, on average you draw maybe 7 experimentations through the game, and if you buy too many cards, right, your times you see your experimentations drop, it might drop to maybe like 6 times or 5 times, and then if you only see it 5 times, right, then are you able to get your first Tleilaxu point? As such, you actually don't really want to get too many cards in Immortality, and you do want to prioritize like good buys, and a lot of times you choose not to buy as well. We'll get to these decisions later on in the game, but I think at this point of time when you're reviewing your Tleilaxu track post game, right, ask yourself this question: is your deck too bloated? And so that's it for this video. We talked about victory points and we talked about our easy points. And I think at the end of the day, what I want you to take away from this is to get your easy points. And you can do this by doing these 2 exercises that I've talked about for your faction friendships and Tleilaxu. Okay? So here's a cheat sheet that you have, and just I think run through it at the end of the game. I've covered this more or less just now, and I think this is slightly in a bit more detail, and yeah. So use this cheat sheet and you review the end of your games. So let's take stock about where we are in this guide. So I've given you a bunch of early game objectives, and I also given you some guidelines to follow through your game, right? Is that you want to get 5 VPs at least at the end of the game, 4 faction friendships and 1 Tleilaxu point. And whenever you don't get them, these are the exercises that you do to try to analyze the decisions that you made through the game that resulted in you not getting these points, right? So get your friendships, get your Tleilaxu points, and win more games in Dune. I hope you like this guide so far, and I'll see you around for the next part where we talk about the other victory points.